We are.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, and Roberta, would you please take the roll?
Supervisor Long? Supervisor Zaragoza?
Here.
Supervisor Parks?
Here.
Supervisor Foy?
Here.
And Supervisor Bennett.
Here. For the moment of inspiration, I'm going to do the moment of inspiration, and what I'd like to do, last week we had Pastor Sam Galucci come in from Harbor Community Church, and he was talking about the fundraisers that they had scheduled this past Sunday. I was really pleased to see Roberta there, and it was a great fundraiser to see all these various churches come together. So I wanted to report that, and that by itself is inspirational, but maybe not something I'd normally do as the moment of inspiration. But the other thing that I wanted to point out to that is that Sunday, same day that we had this great fundraiser for them, the van for Harbor Community Church was firebombed. So they firebombed the van, and nobody knows for sure, but certainly one of the potential causes is people that don't support what Harbor Community Church is doing and trying to block their efforts. And I guess the inspiration I take from that is after participating in their event on Sunday and in feeling that motivation and then having this happen, I think that it just makes me more determined than ever to help that church, help that organization, help them move forward. So there is an urgent need for two things. One, Pastor Sam talked last week about if they can raise $250,000 by Christmas, they can actually open up this city center motel and actually have places for homeless people by this Christmas, and that is their goal, is to get that done by this Christmas time. But now, that was what he talked about, right? But now they also have the urgent need of actually replacing their van. It was a 15-passenger van. They're going to try to replace it with a 12-passenger van, and nobody has the exact dollar figures in terms of what they need, but this is my public appeal to the community to step forward and try to help with that van replacement so that their critical mission can continue. And it couldn't come, I mean, the compound challenge of trying to raise the $250,000 for the hotel, then the van. And so while I was thinking about all of that, I happened to be reading this quote, and it's two pages, but if we got it up there, I'm sure most of you have read it, and I'm going to read it out loud just for the benefit of those that can't see the screen. But as a country, we seem to be suffering from an empathy deficit. By the way, this isn't my quote, right? We wouldn't tolerate schools that don't teach, that are chronically underfunded and understaffed and underinspired, if we thought that the children in them were like our children. It's hard to imagine the CEO of a company giving himself a multi-million-dollar bonus while cutting health care coverage for his workers if he thought they were in some sense his equals. Next slide, please. A stronger sense of empathy would tilt the balance of our current politics in favor of those who are struggling in this society. After all, if they are like us, then their struggles are our own. If we fail to help, we diminish ourselves. That's Barack Obama before he was elected president. And whether you support President Obama or not, Democrat or Republican, I think there's no question that having a stronger sense of empathy community-wide, certainly I wish whoever it was that decided to firebomb that van could do a better job of identifying with the people that were being helped and served by that van. So that's my moment of inspiration. I will have some comments during board comment time about some homeless funding, et cetera, and we'll do that. But I'll make those that are somewhat related to this, but I'll do that at that point in time. If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. We've been requested to hold the minutes. Is that right, Carrie? Continue the minutes, right. All right. So we need a motion to continue the minutes? Okay.
Motion to continue to November 3rd.
All right. We need a second. It's been seconded. We're ready to vote. Okay, and that motion passes. Agenda review, Ms. Robinson.
Yes, I have a few changes. As you know, Supervisor Long is absent due to a death in her family, unfortunately. And I've asked that consent items 12 and 13 be continued to November 3rd. Those deal with the hospital. And then Supervisor Long has asked specifically that the time certain agenda item related to rain, which is item 20, be continued, and that would be continued to November 10th at 1:30.
Okay. Anything else in agenda review? All right. We'll need a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
We're ready to vote. Yes. All righty. Now we have our consent calendar with items 12 and 13 pulled from that. So that's items 10 through 18 minus 12 and 13. 17. All right. Supervisor Foy, item 17.
17, I think, is ready. All right. Yeah, I just if you want to just give me an understanding of exactly what we're doing here and why this is different than it was last year, that's all.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board, Mrs. Robinson.
Good morning, Reddy.
Reddy Patala with Water and Sanitation Department of the Public Works Agency. Item number 17 is an agreement. We are recommending agreement between Ventura Regional Sanitation District and the Ventura County Water Works District number 1. As you're aware, we operate and maintain 7 sewer systems, sewer collection systems. As part of regular maintenance, we also do the sewer cleaning, and we also have to televise the sewer collection system if we find any problems in those areas. At this time, this agreement is mainly for to respond to emergencies. If there was a sewer spill, for example, we call in Ventura Regional staff. At this time, we have a total of 10 employees who work in our sanitation staff. The 10 employees operate and maintain 7 sewer collection systems and also 3 wastewater treatment plants. So there's an emergency, we may need 3 to 5 crew members. At that time, we call in Ventura Regional staff. This is a contract we have in place for several years now. For example, this year we budgeted about $33,000. As of today, we have not used any of that money. And just because it's there, we don't use it if we don't have to use it. And it's a way of managing when we need more people. How do we get the more people for us to take care of emergencies? And as your board is aware, last time when we had the meeting in Oak Park, I came to you with the SSMP Sanitary Sewer Management Plan. As part of this new plan, anytime there's sewer spill, even like 1 gallon of sewer spill, you have to report to the state. Make sure that you are taking care of it as soon as you could. So this is our way of trying to manage emergencies with a minimal cost to the district.
Right, okay. So I guess I'm looking at it before we had a contract max amount of what, 33, or we spent 33, is that what it was?
No, sir. What we are saying is this year we have budgeted for $33,000. As I said, to date we have not used any of the $33,000.
Right, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so, but now you're going to say, let's just budget for 50, just in case, that's what you're
Correct.
thinking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess I'm just looking at, what are you expecting that when you're talking about a 35% increase? That's where I'm just curious. What are we expecting could happen? Or did you
it's
just...
again, it's responding to emergencies. If there was a sewer spill on a given street, if we have, like what we also have called hotspots in certain area of the sewer collection system, we know on a yearly basis there may be some problems. So we call them ahead of time, or if they have a problem on a weekend, we ask them to come out and take care of those. The reason we are showing $33,000 to $50,000 is because of the more stringent regulations that we have to comply with. So we have to respond in a timely manner. It may cost weekends, for example, we may have to call somebody out on overtime. So that's the reason we are estimating.
that's
It does
what I'm
not
saying.
mean we are going to spend.
No, I understand you're going to spend. What I was curious is what was different that all of a sudden we just did some additional valuation saying this $33,000 may not be
Regulation,
enough.
more
in a
stringent
major-
regulations.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's all I was curious about. When we just increase these, I just want to make sure there's a reason. Sometimes, I just don't want to say, well, 33 was good last time, let's go to 50 this time. But there's real reasons, because it makes it easier to spend the money. And we're always trying to find a way to save it. So, okay, that's great. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
And I would just tag on to that my preference would be that we would have the ability to do that in-house without having to go to VRSD for it, and just want to throw that out there. I know VRSD may not always be there for us. We may need to be able to take care of it ourselves, and so I would ask that we look towards that perhaps at the next time the contract is available.
Yes, Supervisor Parks, that's something that we do look at every year on an annual basis. For example, Pyro wastewater treatment plant is currently being operated and maintained by Ventura Regional Sanitation District. When we complete the new project, it's our recommendation for us to take over the operation and maintenance of that system. And to the extent possible, we will be taking on those responsibilities. One big challenge we face is the salaries for the operation and maintenance staff in our sanitation water systems are not comparable or competitive compared to other agencies within the county. So that is challenging for us because we hire employees and we train them and we lose them to other places. So that's one of the challenges we are facing while we are looking at those salaries, and we are trying to manage the systems as best we could, so that especially, as I said, we have only 10 employees entire collection sewer system. So if you need more people, if you have a large sewer spill, you need a lot of people to respond to that. So that's one of the backstops. That's one of the things that this agreement will do for us. Going back to your question, that's we do every year. We look at the possibility of us taking over as much work as we could, because our costs are lower than Ventura Regional's costs.
And I look at Ventura Regional, and they're looking at trying to make up $1 million deficit right now, and partially they're going to try and do about $500,000 in reducing expenditures, the other $500,000 in increasing their revenue. So we may be running at a lower cost, but it's probably keeping us whole, whereas another agency needs to take some more drastic measures.
Yes, sir.
And even partnering with maybe other departments in the Public Works Agency, that in times of emergency that they may be able to come forward too. So just looking at other options that might be available that will be less expensive in the long run too.
Certainly. As far as partnering with other public works agencies, as a water and wastewater workers, we are required to have certain certifications for us to have, and that's a requirement anytime working on the treatment plant, water side of it. So certainly to the extent we have that ability, we will do that.
Mr. Chairman, Reddy, I know that VRSD also does work for other cities, for example, the city of Oxnard, because of the expertise and because of the equipment and because they have that personnel that you might not have. So it's a lot cheaper to have them keep the personnel than you. And in the long run, I think it's probably a cost-saving process, because if you need a specific painting or equipment or whatever, they have it, and we don't have to have it in stock or the personnel either, which I think is a big plus. I know They have worked for the city of Oxnard for, especially over at the sewer plant, because they have specialized painting, for example, that the VRC does, and the city of Oxnard does not have to retain those type of painters and equipment and et cetera, et cetera. So there's also a lot of pluses using VRSD as the broker for those work, for those jobs, just to remind, the board.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Most of the cities have this type of contracts with the Ventura Regional Sanitation District. City of Thousand Oaks has one. City of Oxnard have one. And again, it's only to take care of our needs when we cannot do it ourselves using our own forces.
Because you have people that are trained to pick up small spills, huh?
We do have trained people who can work at the spills. We do have a Vector truck. Vector truck is a large truck where you use it to clean up the spills. Sometimes we don't have the employees with the proper certification. That's when we call Ventura Regional to come out and drive the Vector truck so our people can help and take care of the sewer spills.
Okay. So I think going back to Supervisor Parksdale, if we had the opportunity to even allow these people to get certifications, that would help us in certain areas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, controlling costs, and I appreciate, it's tough that we don't have some of the salaries, but I appreciate that we're in a good position and we're not $1 million in debt like she was talking about. So, great. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for a motion on the consent calendar.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. And that motion passes. Do we have any public comment cards? All right. We just did. That was consent. Yes, we just approved the whole consent calendar. All righty. We are now ready for board comments. I'm going to kick this off this time before we go on. I know that Supervisor, and then I'm going to go to Supervisor Zaragoza because I know it's a real tragedy in Santa Clara, and Supervisor Zaragoza will speak more directly to it than I will, but extremely popular coach and teacher at Santa Clara High School, Mike Sandoval, happens to live in my district but work at Santa Clara, and touched the lives of so many people in Oxnard. 39 years old, passed away from a blood clot traveling to his heart. So I know we're going to jointly ask the board to adjourn in memory of him, and then also the other people on this list. But I think why don't I let you just comment on Mr. Sandoval some, and then I'll come back to my list. And we'll
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sandoval was a coach and also history teacher at Santa Clara High School. Very, very popular. He had a surgery in his leg, and apparently he had a clot that traveled up to his heart, and he died at a very young age of 39. And I happened to go over and see Mrs. O over at Mrs. O'Reilly, who was the principal there at Santa Clara, and the student body was just totally devastated, and they have several hundred students, and I went out there to talk to them, to try to help them out. And also Melanie Roy's staff went over, our counselors, to help the staff and to help the student body. And last night I attended the rosary there at the gym, and there must have been at least 1,000 people there at attending that rosary for the coach. And my understanding is too that we have one of our employees, what's her name? Liz Sandoval works for the county also, and she was there, and again we offered counseling services, and Melanie Roy's people were just outstanding. The principal said, they really helped out the staff and the students and also the assistant coaches. And in fact, they had a game the other day. They played Oak Park, and they dedicated the game to him. And even though they lost, but the spirit was there. But he's very popular. In fact, as we speak, or next hour, they'll have the mass and the burial here at Ventura, the cemetery here off of Valentine. But anyway, I just wanted to share that we were there on behalf of the county, on behalf of all of us, giving our condolences, and very, very popular young man. So.
Thank you for joining me in that, and thank you for your good work with both those students, and trying to get some help to those students and with everybody in the community on that. So appreciate it. I'd also like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list, and the one that I'm going to call out, Dr. John Clarence Wolf, a U.S. Navy veteran, and who was the Associate Superintendent of the Ventura Unified School District before he retired. There also, I want to point out, we had 2 firefighters get injured yesterday fighting a fire up in Ojai. My understanding is that they are okay, but it's a constant reminder that there is risk involved when you're responding to those emergency situations. And then the final thing I'd like to do with my comments is we have this program, the Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program. It's a mouthful of a name. There was federal funding that came in for this. The state of California was passing it out. Some people, some cities and the county received it and some didn't. City of Oxnard got it. The county of Ventura received their allocation, which was a joint allocation with the cities. But Simi Valley, Ventura, Camarillo, and I believe Thousand Oaks did not receive it. I received a letter from Simi Valley expressing their continued interest in it, certainly their implied frustration that they did not receive their allocation. It would have been an additional $1.2 million. And I would point out that, funds for homeless and homeless prevention are very difficult for us to get, and for the city of Ventura, we have essentially it's been purely just a fundraising effort. That fund is now depleted to zero. As you have the Harbor Church moving forward with their fundraising, we have some churches that were supporting the Homeless Prevention Fund that are now saying we're going to actually start buying a room at the church. You still have this Homeless Prevention Fund. This $1.2 million could have gone a long way towards helping with that. So the city of Simi Valley is interested in asking what can we do about it, and is there anything that we can do in terms of positive collaboration. They make reference to the fact in their letter, they said there was an agreement up front on how the funds would be used throughout the county for the benefit of all the citizens, and that's why everybody sort of got together and worked on this. I know I talked a little bit with our CEO yesterday, and she said it didn't make sense in terms of what the state was doing. Then yesterday afternoon, had some reporter call wanting to know what was going on, and I just don't understand it. I don't know what's going on, but when I've got reporters calling, we have this many cities and this many citizens that are frustrated about what's happened. What I'd like to ask is, I'd like to have for this item to be agendized next week for us to get a full report, because if there's something that we can do to secure that funding from the state, find out why, what's going on, why is it that what seemed like a pretty straightforward process did not result in this. So I'd like to have that item agendized for next week, and if it's all right with the board, I'll work with the CEO's office in terms of if it's going to be a time certain or not. I haven't thought that stuff through, but go ahead, Superman. Sure. Okay.
We talked about Coach, but I have, Mr. Chair and board members, I have 4 other items that I'd like to share with that I attended this last week. We attended the Oxnard Firefighter of the Year Awards in Oxnard, and one of the awardees was one of the firefighters that saved the young man over on 5th and Rose a while back. Remember, he got caught he was stuck in the truck, and then the train was coming at 60 miles an hour, and the firefighter was trying to get him out, and it was a matter of seconds. By the time they pulled him out, and the train hit the SUV, and him and the other firefighter saved the young man that was in the car. So they were the firefighters of the year for Oxnard. and it was pretty well attended. Also, I attended a radio station. I got invited to 1590. It's a Spanish-speaking station, and they invited me to talk about county services. And they had it's a call-in type of a station, and it's just a wonder how many people don't really know what a county does, or and the services that we provide. So it was very rewarding type of question and answer type interview. And also, I attended the senior summit over at Channel Islands that was put together by Supervisor Parks. I'm sure the supervisor is going to talk about it. Some 300 seniors attended, and it was very, very well attended. And I had went in one of the classes had to talk about financing and some of the fraud that goes into financing and so forth. And we had speakers from the county also that spoke, from Wells Fargo, some attorneys and wills and where to invest money and about Social Security, and it's very well attended. And I would just like to commend the supervisor for an excellent summit. I also attended a ribbon cutting ceremony for Paseo Santa Clara by Cabrillo, affordable housing there at River Park. In offshore, things happen by the hundreds. 200-300 people attended, and there was a lot of testimony from the residents that were very grateful to the city, to the county, to Cabrillo for giving them the opportunity to realize the American dream. Their own homes, and they're just if you have a chance to go by there, it's just beautiful. They have a center that has some 20+ computers for the kids to go do their homework, and this is top-notch, really, really beautiful, nice location there, and also the computer center. I also attended the Harvest Festival, Halloween Harvest Festival at Nyland Acres. Once we opened Nyland Acres, as you know, we didn't have anything there for years and years and years. We had over 500 and some kids show up. I was one of the judges that judged the different costumes, and Michael, one of the MAC participants, donated a bike, one for a girl and one for a boy, and they had food, they had games, they had jolly jumpers, they had a whole mess of fun there at Nyland Acres. It's just another event that's happened here in the last year, and now we're looking forward to Christmas. But I just wanted to share with you that these kids were just just had a great time, and all the parents participating, and now they have something they can call their own. And by the way, Sheriff, the deputies were there, Offshore PD was there, and the Highway Patrol was there too, participating. So I just wanted to share that. Great event.
Well, thank you very much. I was planning on coming back to you for another round. I just wanted we were going to do the adjourn of memory together and then go on. And so the final thing I just mentioned on my comments so that we can move forward. So if with regards to this funding issue, if we could have two fundamental questions answered, which is why didn't the grant go through, right? What is it that caused it to not go through, and then what can we what are the various options in terms of are there options in terms of what we can do about it? But I think it'd be helpful for us to know both of those pieces of information as we move forward. Supervisor Parks.
Thank you. We did have quite the event at Cal State Channel Islands on Saturday, the Senior Summit. And this year's emphasis was the economy, and I can see where Supervisor Zaragoza attended, I believe, the workshop on financial insecurity. I know the last time we had it was called financial security, but just kind of recognizing the fact that we have seniors being greatly affected by the recession. And in that, we actually had some homeless seniors that were at the event, and some that were very much at risk of homelessness. And it was nice to be able to be there to show what services are available for them, and actually to give some a meal who may not have gotten a meal. So that was kind of nice, but you do see the more desperation that we have as a result of the economy. It was nice to see the sponsors donating. It was a surprise to actually get calls of sponsors who say we'd like to help out, instead of just having to reach out to all of them. we had, I believe, 5 buses that went from all the senior centers in the county, and so that was made it very accessible. And I appreciate Supervisor Zaragoza's attendance at it, too. And then just yesterday, we had a homeless senior come into my office, and very glad to be able to find a women's shelter where she could spend the night and get a meal today. So just realizing that there are many out there in need, and it's nice if we can provide those services. But obviously, I think the point is the government's not going to be there for everybody, and so it does take those other organizations out there to help, and it's nice to see when they can do that. Also had a Greenbelt dinner, is what I called it, where we discussed the Terra Haute Greenbelt as well as the countywide Greenbelts between the cities, and our Resource Management Agency Director Chris Stevens made a presentation, as well as City Council Member Michaels from the City of Moore Park, who talked about the Terra Haute Greenbelt. It was also attended by Mike Siddell, a council member from Thousand Oaks, some LAFCO representatives. And it was really helpful for about, I think we had around 40 people who attended and learn a little bit more and become more educated on it. And we will have that before us at the Board of Supervisors, I believe, before it goes to LAFCO, and Supervisor Foy is bringing that forward. And then also just wanted to thank staff for their assistance in a meeting in Ventura Park, talking about roads there. Really need to get a collaboration of the different agencies, because you have different jurisdictions out there. The city and the county both have jurisdiction on various roads in the Ventura Park area, so sometimes they're enforced by this police department, sometimes by the CHP, and so looking at that. And then some are private roads and some are public roads, so it's nice to be able to get people from Public Works and Planning and the law enforcement agencies out there to present information, and some good suggestions were made, and we're following up on those, so hopefully it'll make it a little bit safer. Fire department was a key there in the sense that the emphasis is the Ventura Park Fire Safe Council is to have access and evacuation ability during disasters. So that was a real helpful meeting. I thank staff for being there. And I would ask that the board close in honor of the people on my list. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Foy.
Thank you. Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend Kalamazoo's 50th anniversary, and it was interesting. The fun part was that they brought back one of their first bands, and these people were, and their orchestras were, and they were all in their 70s, late 60s and 70s performing, and it was great to see. And then they had the new college kids doing it, so it was great to see that whole contrast. And it's amazing, 50 years ago, when you look at what was in Thousand Oaks, there was just pretty much nothing. And I remember coming thinking there was a lot more, because when Cal Poly played football against Cal-Lou back then, and back in '75, and I played there, it was interesting. I thought it was a little bit bigger city, but you go back 15 years earlier and there was just nothing there. And how California has changed, no question. So it was great. Also, state, the Simi Valley Chamber had a State of the State meeting where, some of us came to talk about the county and the state, and some people came to state. It was interesting, though, I thought was interesting, was such a much larger group of people came to it than has come in the past. And I think you see a lot of the business community, everybody else coming, what's going on out there? And they want to know. And it was just interesting to hear from the state, from some of the different state representatives, they don't know what's going to happen. It's just still a confusion of where things are going, revenues are shrinking, and not knowing, as we sit up here trying to figure out what the state's going to do too. It's a difficult thing to do, because there's no money, and it seems to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and they're just, what are we going to do? I don't know if you saw on the news where our treasurer was screaming at both parties, saying, let's get this act together and get this thing worked out. And I think it was good. Somebody's got to start screaming at somebody up there and make something happen. So that was great to see. So anyway, it's interesting to see what's going on with the state. And I do appreciate you, Supervisor Bennett, bringing up the stuff about the homeless. We do need to find ways to help fund that. If there's grants out there, we've got to get everybody working together. And I'd hate to see the cities who all came together as a group want to do this and then find out, well, why didn't we get something, the county get something? I think it's good to get those answers, so thanks for doing that. And
Thank you. And just before we end the comments, I made the comment about trying to raise the funds for the van. I didn't point out, if anybody happens to just have a van that they wanted to contribute, I'm sure the Harbor Church would appreciate that. And for those of you that walked in late, the Harbor Church that did our Moment of Inspiration last week had their van firebombed this
Mr.
weekend.
Chair,
Yeah.
just thinking out loud, the clergy council with the Mohorco, and there's about 50, 60 clergy people that congregate. In fact, I had a meeting yesterday in Oxnard. It might be a good avenue to
Good.
check with them.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate that. All righty. Okay, we are done with board comments. We are finished with our consent calendar, and so we can go to our regular agenda items. What's that? Okay, thank you. That's right. We have our 9 o'clock time certain, all right, and that's ratification and approval of our emergency declaration. I see Sheriff Brooks here and Dr. Levin, and
Good morning, Chairman Barrett, Tenant members of the board, and Mrs. Robinson. I'm asking you this morning to ratify the proclamation of a local emergency that was declared on October 20th. Also to designate Barry Fisher, the director of the Public Health Agency, as the authorized representative of the county for the purposes of obtaining federal funds, and to direct us to return on November 10th to review this action. The proclamation was done at the request of Dr. Levin, and I know very little about viruses, so I thought I'd bring him up front so he could answer any questions and give you a brief summary of both the status of the disease and the vaccination process to date.
that wasn't you I saw in medical school when I dropped out?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Ms. Robinson, we have widespread activity of the pandemic flu virus in our county right now, but it's also could be characterized as spotty. For instance, if you look at schools, there are schools that are affected. There are some that have absenteeism rates of 10 to 12%. But then we have other schools which don't seem to be functioning at any kind of different level in our county. And this, in fact, was kind of what we expected when we followed the virus to the southern hemisphere and watched how it behaved in Australia and New Zealand. It did the same thing down there. We had flu mist, the nasal spray vaccine, arrive in our county about 2 weeks ago. And surprisingly, we haven't gone all the way through it yet, and more arrived last week. I say surprisingly because to me it's a very rational choice as a vaccine. Very effective, in fact, even more effective than the injectable in young people. However, there seems to be some anxiety or concern out there about it, and maybe even a greater disincentive is that people just aren't familiar with it. They expect to get a vaccination at the end of a needle. We are expecting the injectable vaccine soon, and when I say soon, we're hoping for it to arrive today or tomorrow. We'll be getting, when it does arrive, we'll be adding 2 more groups to those who are eligible recipients. That will include pregnant women, and all pregnant women, no matter what their condition, no matter whether they have some underlying problem, all pregnant women are eligible to receive this vaccine. The only reason not to receive this vaccine, the injectable, is egg allergy. We'll also be including high-risk individuals, high-risk medical conditions up to 65 years of age. Only 5,400 doses have arrived in our county. Now, let me put that in perspective for you. 5,400 doses is just slightly over 1% of the high-risk people in our county that we have injectable vaccine to cover. So we have a long way to go in terms of receiving more vaccine. In order to make the vaccine more acceptable, we're opening clinics on a daily basis, 5 days a week, in Freedom Park in Camarillo. It was selected because it's a fairly central location in the county. And those clinics will be open, hopefully starting tomorrow, from 3 until 8, Monday through Friday. This is a collaboration between the Health Department and Ventura County Ambulatory Care System under the Healthcare Agency umbrella. So any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
I do have one question that keeps coming up. The mist, the nasal mist. Right now, people above 49 are not eligible for it. What about people above 49 who have an infant younger than 6 months in the house? Are they supposed to get it or not supposed to get it?
They should be immunized, but they'll have to be immunized with the injectable form.
Okay.
The problem with people who are older getting the spray vaccine is not because it's anticipated that there's a particular problem that those people will have with the vaccine, as much as when a company is bringing a product to the FDA for approval, they pick the most likely target group to be approved by the FDA. And so, while you could probably go down to 6 months, they stopped at 2 years of age. While you could probably go up to 65 or 75 years of age with this vaccine, they stopped at 49 years of age to make it most palatable.
So simply because it hasn't been tested. So therefore,
Correct.
regardless of the reason, nobody's eligible just for those almost legal reasons in terms of the liability.
That's right.
Right. Okay. So that's the injectable for those people. So injectable for those people. And then what do you anticipate in terms of increasing hours and for the?
Well, we're already increasing our hours in our clinics, but this new central site at Freedom Park, its purpose really is to be able to catch kids after school and to catch working adults.
Right.
That's why it's staying open until 8 p.m. and will be available 5 days a week.
So besides that site, though, at the regular clinics, how much do you anticipate increasing those hours?
I believe we're up to 5 o'clock in the evening? Up to 5 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, so 8:30 to 5 at
Yes.
regular clinics. We get a lot of people that are calling us, so we'll make sure we have that accurate information. Right. All right. Okay, Supervisor Parks and then Supervisor
First, I'd
Ford.
just say it's rather remarkable when you hear the news about how there isn't enough vaccine around that we actually have some surplus. So it's good, but it's also remarkable. I was just wondering, it seems that one of the major populations that's being hit by this are the college-age population, and if there's any efforts afoot at the colleges themselves to push for the vaccination.
Well, we've communicated with the schools, and that includes universities, and have been doing so for months. And as of about, I guess it was Friday, we increased the age that we were making eligible to receive the flu mist, the live spray nasal vaccine, to 24 years of age. So that is available now for college students that are under 25.
Supervisor Foy.
I'm done. Thank you.
Just going back on the seriousness of all this, so in a normal flu season, how many more people are getting the flu? Is it much higher, or is it just this H1 flu?
That's a really good question, and I'll elaborate with confidence, but let me say that I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think we know the answer to these questions. We know that some 98 people in our county should die of the seasonal flu every year, 36,000 people nationally.
Right.
We really don't know where we're on track with the swine flu. If I had to guess, I would say we're looking at a virus that is no more or less deadly at this point than the seasonal flu.
All right.
And then there was another aspect to your question that I may have missed.
I was just curious because my daughter goes in the doctor's telling my wife that we're seeing 5 confirmed cases of swine flu a day, and I'm thinking, well, that's fine, but last year or 2 years ago you might have seen 5 confirmed flu a day. I mean, that's what I'm curious. Is it much more serious? Or?
Well, that's really an interesting point. Sometimes seeing more of something is an artifact of being aware that it's more around. And I'm convinced that that is a part of our observations that we're making about swine flu. But there is a difference between the swine flu, also known as the novel influenza H1N1 virus, and the regular seasonal flu. The regular seasonal flu, if it hits this room full of people, will run into about 60 or 70 or 80% of us that have antibodies that either do a good job or kind of limit its spread. On the other hand, a novel influenza virus is called novel because it's new, which means virtually no one in this room would have antibodies to it, so it could spread much more easily throughout people in this room. So to think that, yes, is it spreading more? It probably is spreading more than the regular seasonal flu.
Okay.
Supervisor Zerko?
Good, thanks.
Just for understanding, which is a local emergency authorization, how does that, didn't the president also do a national authorization or emergency? How does that, what's the difference there, or how does that work?
Maybe I'll turn this over to the sheriff. Do you have a better idea? I can take a shot at it if you like, but...
Well, even if it's done nationally, you need to have a local declaration to be able to access federal funds. And that's what the purpose of the declaration is, to make us eligible to put in for federal assistance if needed and if qualified.
To merge it with the federal?
Yes.
Okay. And my understanding, of course, that we haven't even started the flu season, and we're already in a world pandemic, if that's the case, if that's a proper wording.
Well, that's where this novel part of the virus kicks in. The normal flu season in Ventura County begins in the last week or two of December. Mm-hmm. And we see it peaking in March and April and gone a few weeks later. Without any antibodies in people in this county, it really never went away from last April, and we saw some ongoing activity all during the summer. And when school got back into session, it's kind of an incubator for the spread of this virus, and so we're seeing a lot more cases again, even though it's before the usual flu season.
And just for understanding, we have the swine flu and then we have the regular flu, and what happens with a combination of both, or is it just one?
It's two different influenza A viruses. You can get both. You could get the flu twice this season, and that's one of the reasons why we're encouraging people to get both the regular seasonal flu vaccine and the swine flu vaccine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Okay. Thank you very much. We need a motion. And a second, and now we're ready to vote. What was that, Roberta? Yes. Exactly. And that motion passes 4-0. The emergency's been declared. Thank you both very much for taking time this morning to be here. I know you have quite a bit to do there. All right, we have the opportunity to get move through our agenda items. We do have to stop and go into closed session at 9:45, so we'll handle these as we'll see how many of these that we can get handled. So our next item is item 32. That's the Ventura County Fire Protection District. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Bennett, members of the board, and Ms. Robinson. I'm Vaughn Miller from the Fire District, and today the Fire District is asking to renew its contract with its CAD vendor, Tritech, for 3 more years. And no real changes in the contract. It's just effectively we're extending our price agreement until the termination of the contract.
Move the item.
It's moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. And that motion passes 4-0. We're at item 33. That's the ratification of the agreement with Casa Pacifica. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Bennett, members of the board, and Mrs. Robinson. I'm John Brooks, Contracts Manager at the Behavioral Health Department. Melanie Roy is out sick today, so I'm in her place. And the item before you is regarding a contract for Casa Pacifica. They're a local nonprofit and serving children with mental health needs. They operate a residential center throughout the county. They provide crisis care, residential treatment, therapeutic behavioral services, wraparound, and parent-child interactive therapy services. This contract is really a continuation of the prior services. The funding level is about the same as last year. We have been working with CASA to reduce the costs, and in the therapeutic behavior services, we've reduced the caseload so far this year by half. So we are anticipating some cost savings through the year as we move forward with the contract. But overall, it's pretty much the same as it was last year. And as far as services go, we're very happy with the services that they are providing for our community. I'd be happy to give you a more detailed overview of the programs or answer any other questions that you may have on this item.
Great program. Move the item.
It's been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Item 34, Human Services Agency.
Morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board. I'm Barry Zimmerman of the Human Services Agency. And what I have before you is actually a joint plan between the Human Services Agency and the District Attorney's Office. And this is a plan that needs your approval in order to submit to the state to get access to fraud prevention and fraud detection activities for IHSS programs. In this last budget cycle, they did modify some of the program elements of the IHSS program, including funding to do fraud detention and prevention efforts, which is a new thing for us. We have worked with the District Attorney's Office and developed a plan in which we will be working together and dedicating some staff for this preventive work.
Okay.
I'll move the item.
Been moved and seconded.
It's good to see that because we do hear of the fraud. It'd be nice to be able to find it and get it out of there.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Barry. 35, county's participation in Prop 1A securitization program. Mr. Dursey, good morning.
Morning, board members. Paul Dursey from the County Executive Office. As your board is probably well aware, the state borrowed about $32 million from county operations to balance their 2009-2010 budget. And in conjunction with that, they gave the opportunity to securitize that loan to the state if we so desired. So we went through the analysis. We worked with our treasurer, with Bob Hansen, trying to develop, because we're looking at this really as an investment rather than a borrowing. So we're really, are we better off investing in the state, or are we better off taking the money ourselves and investing it ourselves? So we went through that security, liquidity, risk analysis from the security standpoint. Federal government, state government, we're leaning toward to the feds. If we invest in federal treasuries or federal agencies, we can get about a 2%, 3% rate in that time period. The state, and then, so security level, we're leaning toward the feds. Liquidity, definitely toward the federal treasuries. Any federal investment is a lot more liquid. And then yield. The yield that the state was going to allow us was 2%. They were going to pay us 2% for us loaning them money for 3.5 years. I'd be surprised if they end up paying less than 3.5% total cost on that. So I'm a little disappointed in that 2% that they were going to offer us. So I think taking all those into consideration, it is our recommendation that we go ahead and sell our receivable to the California communities and go ahead and take the money and invest it ourselves. So, and that's our recommendation at this point, and we will be back, assuming your board approves that recommendation, next week with the formal documents to go through the formal process for the county, the Fire Protection District, and the Watershed Protection District. So we'll have 3 sets of documents next week. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
The only comment I'd make is that when somebody borrows something from you, it usually means somebody's willing to give it. I don't think we were willing.
And that's what, about 20 million or?
Well, a total of 32 million,
32 million.
about 20, let's see, I have the numbers here, 21.6 from the general fund, and then 8.4.
Fire district.
Fire district, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And explain to me why bondholders won't have any claim on the county.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're selling, the state owes us money, so we have a receivable from the state. We're taking that through the formal documents we'll be presenting next week. We're taking that receivable and selling it to the California communities, who in turn around will package all these receivables. I think there's like 1,500 agencies throughout the state who are going to be involved in this. So they'll turn around, package that, and issue bonds based on the credit of the state to pay back those bonds. And then we're completely out of it with no recourse back to the county because we've essentially sold our receivable.
What's still, the one thing I still struggle with is, what's the difference between that and the state just selling the bonds in the first place? I mean, why pass them through us, pass a revenue stream through us? We're saying we're not going to touch the revenue stream. We're just going to pass it right on to the bondholders. So if the state would have sold those bonds directly, is it just a budgeting gimmick so the state is borrowing from us and not borrowing from them?
I think it really is. It is a budgeting gimmick because they have the option for the Prop 1A suspension, and I think the securitization came after to kind of appease the local governments who complained a lot about the fact that the state was going to take the Prop 1A funds from the local governments. I agree. When you cut through it, there's no difference. But I'm assuming it has. I'm not familiar with specifics, but the fact that it's a 3.5-year deal, they can't issue 1-year notes on a 3.5-year issue, so they have to go through a different process. Because they normally issue the RANs for a limited amount of time, which would fund a 1-year or cash flow shortage. Well, this is a 1-year cash flow shortage that they're going to pay back in 3 years or 3.5 years. So it's a little bit different.
It sounds like the state's,
Absolutely.
It sounds like state, a 1-year thing that they're going to pay back over 3. But so essentially the differences between the state having just done this or going through us is the state is able to get longer term.
I believe so. We can check on that for sure to make sure because.
And my second question is, does this affect our bonding capacity?
No, because again, we're not borrowing any money. What we're doing is we're taking money that the state was borrowing from us and then just selling that. So the dollars are actually going to come in. We're going to get the money in January and April, I believe, and we'll be clearing.
I appreciate that this is pretty complicated, and I appreciate that we have you and others doing this analysis for us on this. I know Supervisor Zaragoza wants to get on, Supervisor Foy, County Council, and Ms. Robinson all want to go.
I just wanted to share. Do we get a better rate of return than the state because of our credit rating?
Well, we'll see what happens. We would, generally speaking, we would get a better rate of return. But what we'll see when California Communities actually sells these bonds, it'll be interesting to see what interest rate they get. I'm guessing they're going to have a full cost of probably 3.5% to 4%. That's just a guess. We'll know for sure. But them offering us 2% clearly isn't, in my opinion, very competitive with a 3.5% or 4% what they're going to have to pay. And I think it would have been beneficial on the state's behalf to get all the counties, some of the larger counties especially, to be involved and not go through the securitization process because they could have saved some significant amount of dollars.
But half of that money would be just to buy the bonds, right? Half of 2%.
They have a lot of other costs involved in selling those bonds too. Underwriter costs, their bond counsel costs. Bond counsel putting together 1,500 agencies' bond documents is significant from a cost standpoint.
Mr. Claiborne?
Mr. Chairman, in answer to your question about why the state would do it this way instead of borrowing, it's a way around the legal restriction on state long-term borrowing.
Right.
They'd have to go to the electorate to get authorization to issue GO bonds for 3 years.
Thank you.
Well, the more you read it, the more you went, this is just a shell game, where some revenue is theoretically passing through us, but that's all fascinating, right? Ms. Robinson.
I was just going to point out that when we were originally talking about this, we anticipated having to use some of our reserves to pay the state. And we were talking about what kind of return, and that's why this model was used for evaluating both sorts of programs. And when we found out we were only going to get 2%, and I think, as Mr. Dorsey pointed out, it's going to be very interesting to see. As you know, when we put out our short-term bonds, we put out short-term on our transits last time, and they were oversubscribed, so they went down in terms of the interest that we had to pay. I suspect when they put these out, they're not necessarily going to be oversubscribed, so consequently they're going to have to adjust rates to whatever the market says. I'm going to balance my risk, the risk that I've got with the state, with what my potential investment earnings are going to be, and it's not going to be 2%. So it's just interesting that we kind of went full circle about how we felt it was best to position the county.
You know, if it wasn't so easy, it would be fun to crack wise about the state. But everybody's doing it. It's sort of like there's nothing novel about doing it any longer. I thought about 10 jokes while you're saying that. About could our pension fund buy these bonds? Just all the way around and stuff. But yeah, fascinating. But there you go. Thank you very much. We're ready for a motion on this, and that is to recommend participation in the Prop 1A securitization program. I'll move it. We need a second. It's been seconded. We're ready to vote. And I think we can get our other items done. Item 35 is reappointment of Supervisor Long to CSAC. She does a great job for us, and we need to, all right, moved and seconded, and
Thank you for doing that.
all right, great. And then why don't we just, while we're at it, we'd move to accept the correspondence agenda. We need a motion on the correspondence agenda. Roberta, there we go. Thank you. And okay, and we will go into closed session. Great. What's that? Well, I will if I can get as long as I can get the other stuff done. Yeah, that is 5 minutes before the deadline that we were supposed to go into closed session. I'd like to call the board back into session, and we have an announcement that we need to make on item 28 from closed session. I'll turn it over to County Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On item 28 on the agenda, in Bernard's Brothers, Inc. versus County of Ventura, which is a petition by a general contractor to vacate a construction arbitration award in favor of the county, the Board of Supervisors has voted 4-0 to authorize an appeal of the Superior Court's order vacating the arbitration award. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have we have some important people in the audience because they do great work for the food stamp program in terms of the accuracy, and we have people from the Child Care Council here, and looking forward to the next 45 minutes. It'll be a nice change of pace from trying to deal with the budget issues and those things that we have to deal with. This first item, item 21, is a resolution of the Board of Supervisors recognizing Ventura County Human Services Agency recipients of the Food Stamp Accuracy Rate Award. And we have in attendance Barry Zimmerman. Barry, could you come on down? Curtis Updike, Deputy Director of the Transitional Assistance Program. Dennis Stewart, Western Regional Director of Food and Nutrition Services. And Chris Webb Curtis. And then I'm sure you're going to introduce your staff after I turn this over to you in just a moment. But this is a very brief resolution. I'm just going to identify a couple of key points. The HSA administers the federal food stamp program locally. More than $46 million in food stamp benefits to Ventura County residents. The federal government has very rigorous standards, and with all of those standards, our county achieved a 99.14% accuracy rate. The accuracy level was the highest achievement in the state of California. So it is something that we are sure you're proud of, but we need you to know that it makes us proud to be on the Board of Supervisors of a group that's working so hard and so effectively. So my compliments to everybody from the top all the way down to, I think it's all of you people in the back row that make it happen day in and day out. So, Barry, I'll turn it over to you folks for this part of the presentation.
Sure. I'm Chris Webb Curtis. I'm Chief of the Food Stamp Branch for the State of California, Department of Social Services, and I'm just very happy to be here to congratulate you and to present an award to the Public Social Services Director for achieving...
I have one like this in my office.
Yeah. For achieving the lowest food stamp program payment error rate for the state for federal fiscal year 2008. You've already heard the statistics, 99.14% payment accuracy rate, which is a 0.86% error rate. Wonderful job. The achievement reinforces important quality control measures and reflects the agency's commitment to working to provide essential nutritional assistance to the neediest Californians. Some of the factors contributing to that historic low error rate include expanded state oversight, monthly county performance reviews, and sharing of best practices. In addition, counties like Ventura have formed review panels and conducted secondary quality assurance review. This county's low error rate is indicative of the Public Social Service Agency staff, from the director down to the client benefit specialist, dedication and commitment to payment accuracy in the monthly delivery of nutritional assistance for about 19,500. Is that the right number? 19,000? Households. That's households. That's households. Yeah, here in the county.
49,000.
Also, I'm glad to say that this is the third time in 4 years that Ventura has achieved the distinction of being the county with the lowest error rate. Yay again. So it's with great pleasure that I've presented this perpetual award to Ventura County again.
Thank you. Hope to see you next year.
Yeah, right.
Chairman, members of the board, I'm Dennis Stewart. I'm the Western Regional Director for the
food stamp program, or the SNAP program as it's called nationally, operated by the USDA Food Nutrition Service. And it's really an honor and a privilege to be here today to present this award on behalf of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You've heard the statistics. The standard of excellence is excellent in of itself. I won't go through that, but I did want to add a few things to this. It's really a commitment by the county in times of a growing caseload that are a result of the economy to be able to serve 30% more people just simply because that's what the economy has produced, and yet still able to maintain not only the best payment accuracy standard in California, but one of the tops among all states in the country. And you actually do issue more benefits than several states. So that's to keep some perspective here. Not only do you have a good payment accuracy record, but I wanted the board to make sure that they understood that USDA statistics indicate that for every dollar that's spent that comes down to the county, and it's of course all federal money, nice words for any county to hear, the real economic value to the county is multiplying that by $1.84. So although you've heard that in the last federal fiscal year there were over $46 million in benefits, the real economic impact to the county of the food stamp program alone was over $85.5 million. And as your caseload increases, then the multiplier increases. So I think it's reasonable to expect that when the numbers are in for the current federal fiscal year, that the economic impact to the county will be over $100 million just from this particular program. So you are proving to be stewards of a lot of money, and you are bringing a lot of money into the county, which I'm sure the county could use. So I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate everybody. And one last little factoid for the record is that USDA is, of course, very concerned about error rates and fraud in any social service programs. If the nation had had the same level of rigor in administering this program as Ventura County, the taxpayers would have been saved over $1.4 billion in losses to the program. So you really are a model for the rest of the country, and I want to congratulate you. Even though the county says it's County Buenaventura, which means good luck, we understand that these things don't happen by good luck. They happen by good management, so I want to thank Barry and Curtis for their management, and I do really want to give a round of applause to all of the staff. So, on behalf of USDA, I would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Ventura County for having the best food stamp program accuracy rate in the state of California in federal fiscal year 2008. This is the 6th time in 8 years that Ventura County has achieved this award. So maybe we should calendar another presentation for next year. Barry, thank you very much. Thank you. And Curtis, thank you. Thank you.
We do charge them for storing the trophy, but why don't we have all the staff come on down for a picture right here?
We'll invite all staff, and I'd just like to make my comments really fast. As you know, we get the recognition, but really it's the staff efforts, and we have tremendous staff at our managerial levels in the field, as well as those that interface with our clients diligently day after day and working through a very complex program and many other services that families are going through at that time, and do a tremendous job, and we recognize them and honor them for their effort. And oftentimes they go unnoticed, but is a valuable part of our community that really sustains and helps families, and we appreciate them. So we'll invite them all to come down really fast. So.
Do you have any helpful hints for all those other counties that can't do this?
We're actually, after this meeting, we're going to be meeting with Dennis and Chris, and they're going to be talking to our staff and gleaning out some of the things we're doing as best practices and how we can share throughout this state. So,
good. Yeah. Hey, Barry, it's not easy to get to the top, but it's always really hard to stay at the top, and it's amazing what you guys and your people have done. So it's an attitude, not just practices and everything else, but it's an attitude. So congratulations to all those people.
Yeah. Thank you. And Barry, I'd like to also thank the staff for a great job. The payback is tremendous, and thank you. And your accuracy too is extremely important too.
So Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't be shy, you can stand right here. You'll have to.
Can someone hold? Yeah. It's like the same. Perfect. Thank you. Someone give me their pen, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, our next time certain is 11 o'clock report on investments. Mr. Hanson.
Good morning, Bob Hanson, Chief Investment Officer, Ventura County. Well, the good news is the tax bills are on the street, so the revenue will start coming in. Good news for me, because that means that I won't have to sell any high-yielding securities if I do, for some reason, need money. And I'd like to thank Don Hanson, the Assistant Treasurer, and his staff. They actually got the tax bills out early, a week to 2 weeks early this year, and he was working with me on that. Like I said, it means immediately people start paying bills, and I can use that money rather than, as I stated earlier, having to sell something that is earning a good rate of return at this point. And speaking of returns, these are the good old days with this 2% handle, and so we're very happy with that. Other than that, probably my biggest challenge, and there's not much I can do about it because it is what it is, but just to let you know, this monthly rate will be dropping, and dropping quickly, because as I get the tax money in, 1-year rates are 0.43, 2-year rates are 1.21, and 3-year rates are 1.76. And if that doesn't seem low, think of a 90-day T-bill at 0.06, which is 6/100ths of 1%, which is pretty close to zero. Yes, I'd like to just freeze this, but unfortunately, there are people having a rough time even right now. But we're out on the curve, and we still are capturing some of those 2- and 3-year agencies.
Just noticing on your average monthly balance, we have over 300, looks like $300 million more dollars than we had a year ago. Is that just more, we're just holding more, or more schools and everybody else aren't drawing down on their investments?
You know, it's probably just a combination of everything. Could be bond proceeds. Could be, of course, people are putting more money in my fund. We're 4 times the rate of LAIF now. So, yeah. I used to be happy when I could win by 0.10 or 0.20, but now we're 4 times their rate.
So they're going after the best money manager and put their money, I see.
Pardon me?
They're going with the best money manager now, I see.
Yeah, you go with the hot spot. So anyway, so it's a combination of a number of things.
All right.
And I don't own any Toyota. I own a small position in GE, and I'm happy about that too. I really am.
Good. Yeah, when you saw those Toyota recalls, you go, well, you know, a big company could even get hit pretty hard. All righty, we need a motion to accept. We have two other items. Mr. Hanson, thank you again for this. Each month it becomes increasingly easier to understand because you sort of get some learned knowledge as you look at the changes. So it's very helpful. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote. And that motion passes. Now that motion passes, right? All righty, great. Thanks, Mr. Hanson. Our next 11 o'clock, and we have two, and if just ask for the indulgence of the Child Care Planning Council people. You got one more item before you, and that's the public hearing and approval of PC 1210. That's Proposition 36. How you doing, Patrick?
Good morning, Chair Bennett, Mrs. Robinson, and members of the board. Patrick Zarate, Ventura County Behavioral Health, Alcohol, and Drug Programs. We have put before you a plan to institute participant fees for the PC 1210 program. This is formerly the Proposition 36 program. You will recall that there was a voter initiative in the year 2000 under the Substance Abuse Crime Prevention Act. In 2001, the state funded that under Proposition 36 programming, and the funding sunsetted 5 years after that. Since 2006, both the Proposition 36 and the Offender Treatment Program have suffered, for lack of a better term, under ever decreasing funding from the state. After the last state budget cycle in 2009, it was decided to eliminate funding for penal code for programs that are funded for clients convicted under Penal Code Section 1210.1. So what we've been able to do is to look across the state at what other counties have decided to do. Some of them have clung to their existing models and are expending any rollover. They will be probably universally looking at this sort of mechanism to offset their costs once those rollovers are diminished. Other counties have decided to absorb clients into their system, and what that's meant is essentially, this is how they put it, that we'll provide services to them with our existing service delivery programs, but they'll have to get in line with everyone else. One of those counties, which is a medium-large county, reports a waiting list of around 400 people. So what we have done is move the existing staff into vacant positions in alcohol and drug programs that are funded by state and federal discretionary dollars, and we're proposing to offset our costs by instituting participant fees. We've found that we've been able to do this quite successfully in Ventura County for other court-mandated drug programs like deferred entry of judgment and the county DUI program.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Cerati?
I have a couple. One is, if we wanted full cost recovery instead of paying close to $1,000, it would require, what, about $2,500?
I would say a minimum of that, yes.
And to me, it seems that these people would otherwise be in jail if they weren't in the program. And to bail yourself out of jail, that's got to cost some money. So to me, it also would indicate some commitment beyond just saying that you're going to do the program, but because you've got money at stake and perhaps borrowing from your family, that you may have more commitment to stay in the program. This doesn't give me much difficulty to approve, and I would even consider the thought of full cost recovery, but I don't have a problem with this. I think it could very well increase the commitment of individuals to go through the whole program. And that is really one of the problems with this program, is we're not getting that full commitment. The question that I have, you have the costs and fees. $5 for drug testing is part of all of this. I know another problem with the Prop 36 program is we're not, in my mind, getting enough drug testing done. Is that sufficient, or is that just one drug test when the program goes up for many months, that we may actually use this opportunity to have more drug testing done?
Well, I think part of it is the strategy of how you implement drug testing. We've been providing a drug test regime that's been pretty cost prohibitive. We do receive, and we will continue to receive, apparently, specific funding for drug testing. By implementing a new model, we believe we'll get the same level of effect in judging people's sobriety, but at the same time asking clients to assist us in making payments as they get tested.
Does that drug testing funds that you have come out of our general fund?
No.
Okay.
This is SATA dollars, S-A-T-T-A.
I would be very interested in having more drug tests done. If what we have going now is like one drug test, and I had a resident in my area, former heroin addict, go through this program and succeeds, graduate, if you will. But he had indicated to me he only had one drug test in that was close to 6-month period. And to me, that was rather surprising. So if we could use this as an opportunity to increase the number, I don't know what the standard number of drug tests are.
Well, it depends on what phase of the program they've been in. If they're in the initial phase, then they can be tested up to twice a week. So I'm a little surprised that someone would say they were only tested once in a 6-month period of time.
And he was one of the first, I think, to go through the program, so maybe we weren't doing as many. So right now the standard amount of drug testing in the initial phase is possibly as much as twice a week?
It can be. It depends on clinical indicators, and as I say, as they move through the program, then there's a different level of testing that's required. But we don't rely on drug testing alone to judge sobriety. We look at behavior and demeanor and participation and the client's ability to progress in other functional areas. And at that point, that gives us an indicator of whether more drug testing is required, or perhaps even placing them into a relapse prevention track.
And I just think it's so important because particularly when you're in group situations with other drug addicts who are not using and you have someone who is, it can be deleterious to the whole group.
I agree.
Was the grand jury recommendation on this, did they take note of the drug testing, the amount of drug testing, do you recall?
I don't recall that. I do recall there was a mention of drug testing in relation to the reporting back to the court about a client's progress. And I think as we've worked collaboratively with probation, we've been able to correct and address those issues.
Close that loop.
Yes, ma'am.
That's very good. But you don't see then that we have a lack of drug testing in the program where this $5 for an additional drug test or drug testing could be raised, and so we could have more of that and it would be more effective?
We'll certainly we will look at that in the future.
Thank you.
Supervisor Foy.
Supervisor Park made some very good comments on this. Is that fine? What's it cost us to do a drug test? Do you have an idea?
I think our current contract, the drug test being different than a drug screening,
yes,
is somewhere in the area of $7 to $8 per test.
$7 to $8.
$7 to $8.
Okay.
I don't recall the exact figure.
And when this $5 charge, is that just a one-time charge for the program, or is it every time they test?
This would be every time that they test.
Okay. And I think going back to what Supervisor Park said, the full recovery on this is there. I don't think the taxpayer should be burdened with something that somebody's causing if it's possible to do this. And these programs are so much cheaper than some of the private programs that are out there, opportunity to get these. And I think we give payment plans to this or whatever else we can do for some of these to try to make it easy for these people to pay this, right?
Correct.
Right.
We won't be excluding people for inability to pay.
Right.
we have a mechanism in the other court-mandated programs to provide either extended payment plans or even a fee waiver if the documentation is sufficient to justify that.
Right, and I think I think she makes a good point that the incentive, I put enough money in this, it keeps me out of jail, this is an opportunity for us to do this. And again, I don't think that people who don't have to go through this should be burdened, the taxpayer who pays should be burdened with the people who are doing this. So anything you can do to raise these up, I think it would be a great opportunity to try to get that full recovery she talked about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Parks.
And towards that end, there are people who can pay the full cost.
Yes, there are.
Can we approach it in that way, those that can pay the full instead of, agreeing right away to a subsidy for everybody?
Oh, we won't be subsidizing anyone that has the ability to pay. Like you say, the fees it merely is an offset. It's not going to cover the entire cost of providing treatment.
So
we were
subsidy, isn't it?
Excuse me.
Isn't that a subsidy then? If the fee doesn't.
Correct. You're correct. So we're looking at it from the standpoint of what did we think clients would be able to pay, and in discussion with other counties that have approached this, we're right in the range of what everyone has found would be at least a good starting point to offset the costs.
Do we have the ability to have the client pay the full amount if they have the funds? Certainly if their family can afford it. It sounds like we're coming at this with a standard price, no matter what your income level is, so we will help those who can't afford it. And when in fact we could actually be getting full cost recovery from those who can't afford it.
I see your point.
CEO has a question.
I was just suggesting maybe we can bring this back and look at that option.
Certainly.
I just wanted to make the point about, our office is certainly interested in full cost recovery where we can get that. I think the issue is in some of these kinds of programs, what's an incentive versus what's a barrier. And you want to make it at a point where you incentivize people to certainly move along the program, but you don't want it to be so cost prohibitive that rather than do anything about it, they'd rather stay where they're at. So I think that's a constant, probably thing that you in the business are evaluating about what motivates people, what moves people, and what causes them to stay where they're at. So I think the discussion is really good about what kinds of rates and fees we should charge, but we always need to have in the back of our mind what's going to be an impediment versus, an inspiration to move forward. So doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at if there's some sort of a progressive, what I hear the supervisor saying is whether or not there should be a progressive fee that goes from a range of fees that goes from here to here, and depending
from full
on
cost recovery should be the first survey.
Right. To full cost.
Yeah, right. Because if somebody's out there and they make $250,000 a year, and the cost of this is $2,500, they should pay that whole cost. And there's somebody else making $10,000 a year. Okay, we can subsidize. I agree with that. But I think Supervisor Park's right for that full cost recovery.
Supervisor Zaragoza?
The question I had: how do you verify who can pay and who can't? Is there income tax returns that are, or how do they?
Actually, what we intend to do is borrow that mechanism that we use in the DUI program to determine either financial hardship, which would qualify them for an extended payment plan, or an inability to pay and a fee waiver. And that does involve that level of documentation where someone would have to bring in government documents to prove that they have no ability to pay.
Well, I think it's an excellent program because in lieu of incarceration, you're talking, it's a big incentive there to provide this program. So I think it's an excellent program.
Thank you.
I'd just like to point one thing out. I appreciate the concept, but just the way that Mr. Cerati just explained it, what's going to happen is somebody's going to come in and they're going to be presented with a fee. And the burden is on them to prove that their income is not sufficient and that they would qualify for a reduction. So I think we have to if it's, I could see a lot of people just say, because we've already seen that, a lot of people just say, I'll just stay in jail, right?
Well, anecdotally, what we've also seen, for example, in the other court-mandated programs that are sustained only by participant fees, is they say they can't pay, and then when we give them the hurdles that they need to show us that demonstrate that they can't, then they will write a check.
That's your experience.
I think yeah, that's how we've been able to keep both DUI and deferred entry of judgment in business.
I would just say a drug habit is a very expensive habit to begin with. And for $1,000 or $2,000, you can stay out of jail for that period of time. I think that money they may be able to come up with those kind of funds.
So
I would just, I would prefer to have that full cost recovery option. So I don't know if we should come back with that and you could put it out in a report, or if we can just amend this staff report to include that. Well, I guess if we are going to do that, it would require having it come back.
It would require a completely different level of analysis than what we had done to determine these fees.
If I can, I'm John Brooks from Behavioral Health. Would it be possible to move forward with this and give us 4 months to come back with a cost proposal, bringing into that concept as well, so we can move forward with the implementation and get started?
So we can get going now, and then in 4 months we can look at amending the program to have full cost recovery.
If we could, please.
Certainly move forward on that. Thank you.
common sense reigns in the boardroom. Very good. All right. Great.
I'll go ahead and
Thanks,
make
John.
that motion then to approve the recommendation and a 4-month return date for full cost recovery option.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No.
Thanks.
I have been dying to do this presentation for some time here, but this is or not a presentation, this introduction, but I'd like to introduce Carrie Murphy, and she is with the County Office of Education, the Pre-K Programs and Services Coordinator. She's going to be introducing a PowerPoint for us, and will you be introducing Elizabeth and Nancy as their co-presenters? All right, and then just before we get started, I want to thank Lisa Hart. Is Lisa there? For helping coordinating with you guys in terms of getting this done and stuff. So Carrie Murphy, one of the great people in the county in terms of preschool programs and stuff. So great. Thank you, Carrie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, supervisors and staff. And thank you very much for including us on your agenda this morning. As Supervisor Bennett said, I'm Carrie Murphy. I'm with County Office of Ed, where we coordinate several pre-K programs, including the Child Care Planning Council. Myself and Lisa Hart are staff to the council, and we're here today with our chair and our co-chair. Our chair is Nancy Kreismeyer, who is with Public Health as a health educator, and our vice chair is Betsy Quintero, who is a early childhood studies professor at Cal State Channel Islands. So they're going to take about 10 minutes to provide an overview of what the Planning Council is up to here in Ventura County, and I'll turn it over to Nancy at this point. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for including us on your agenda. My name is Betsy Quintero, and I'm here with Nancy Kreiselmeyer and several members of our staff and executive committee. We're here today to provide a brief overview and update of our Planning Council activities. Department of Education refers to local planning councils as the nexus point of information within a county. We often refer to ourselves as the united voice for child care. The council was established in 1997 as mandated by legislation AB 1542. We have 25 members who are appointed by the county superintendent and board of supervisors. The council has a diverse membership base from throughout the county. Our membership consists of child care providers, community representatives, public agency representatives, and consumers of child care. Every county has a local planning council, and locally we refer to ours as the Child Care Planning Council. California Ed Code describes the requirement of the local planning councils. We're expected to develop a countywide child care needs assessment once every 5 years, and to address these identified needs, corresponding strategic plans are then developed. Other responsibilities include setting local priorities for new state funding allocations to Ventura County. At the request of the legislature, this process was standardized amongst all 50 counties this year, 58 counties, excuse me. Meeting another request of the legislature, starting this year, the local planning councils are convening contractors to voluntarily and temporarily transfer funds within counties, thus returning fewer dollars back to Sacramento and keeping it more here in the county to serve our needs. And as we continue to offer professional development and workforce support through providing stipends to those pursuing degrees, as well as support via career advisors located at community college, and of course, workforce support through professional development. As mentioned earlier, the strategic plan supports the work described in the needs assessment. We have some if anybody's wants to look more into them. And our Child Care Planning Council formed committees around priority areas to achieve goals, objectives, and activities of the plan. Strategic plans cover a time span of 5 years, and we divided this body of work into our current 3-year strategic plan and followed by our 2-year extension of the strategic plan. In June, the Planning Council approved this 2-year extension with a new committee structure to address our work. I'll ask the Council's co-chair to share highlights from the plan.
And we're going to do a switcher. All right. Thank you, Betsy, and good morning, supervisors. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to share highlights of our committee work, starting with the executive and membership committees. These committees strive to ensure that all organizations and individuals that work with child care in Ventura County work together to share information, create and strengthen partnerships, leverage resources, and utilize existing resources and services more effectively. The quality and professional development. Whoa. Sorry. We seem to be stuck here. Just bear with us. There we go. Thank you. The Quality and Professional Development Committee promotes high-quality early childhood education programs for all children throughout Ventura County. They identify best practices for quality improvement, determine local priority and quality improvement, and they're developing a quality improvement system in the county. This includes maintaining an inventory of training opportunities, identifying gaps and training needs. The final bullet references promoting a high-quality workforce. Our AB 212 stipend project has merged with the First 5 Cares project to provide $500,000 in annual support to the ECE field. This funding is used for stipends and career coaching. Stipends and career coaching support recruitment, retention, and attainment of degrees. The first slide talked about the Planning Council being the united voice for childcare, or the nexus point of information within Ventura County. This committee is tasked with educating the community about the importance of and the access to high-quality care. We do this with vehicles such as our well-received biweekly CCPC news update, our report card summarizing our accomplishments, and formally recognizing our programs when they receive their national accreditation. One of the most important tasks the Council undertakes is documenting the need for high-quality care. To do this, we're about to begin our next needs assessment process. We all know how important the 0 to 5 window is in laying the foundation for future learning. Still, some of the most frequently quoted research is the Chicago Parent-Child Study, which shows that high-quality early childhood education targeted for children who need it most shows a return of $7 for every $1 invested. The federal stimulus package, ARA funding, included $5 billion for early childhood funding. Early childhood was included in a jobs bill, the message being America can't work without childcare. As a mother of a young child, I can't work without childcare. Here in Ventura County, $1 million in ARA funding has been granted to Head Start, and more is expected. Jack O'Connell's P16 Council is working on closing the achievement gap to ensure school readiness. And Darrell Steinberg's Senate Bill 1629 asked California to create an early learning quality improvement system. On a parallel path with this state work, Ventura County has both a P16 Council and a Quality Improvement System Committee, as I mentioned earlier. The quality improvement work is under the CCPC umbrella. We still have a long way to go. The data that you see on the slide was collected by our local resource and referral agency, CDR. And you'll see that there are licensed bases for only 29% of the 89,000 0 to 13-year-olds. So much attention has been placed on the importance of quality pre-K in recent years at the national, state, and local levels. Nationally, President Obama's stimulus package included funding for ECE expansion and quality initiatives. At the state level, Jack O'Connell's P16 Council and Darrell Steinberg's bill emphasized quality early learning experiences. And locally, the CCPC connects the dots, working to create access to quality early learning experiences. This slide describes some of the important steps that need to be taken. Steps that need to be taken by the Council and collectively as we all advocate on behalf of young children in Ventura County. Steps we are all committed to as a united voice for childcare in Ventura County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything else in your presentation, Terry? All righty. Thank you. It's good for us to get this check-in and update. A lot of good work is going on, and Ventura County is certainly one of the leaders in terms of early childhood education services, with what's happening with our First Five program, et cetera. So we're fortunate to be there. We can't measure how much good comes out of this. You just know it's enormous when you're touching those children during that time when their brains are most developing and their emotional needs are getting most settled. And so I would hate to see our county without the program and see what would happen, but the costs are way down the road. And it's one of those investments that I think we just have to recognize. It's an investment in the future that nobody's going to be able to put a dollar and cent, a real measurable dollar and cent on. But thank you very much for what you're doing. Appreciate you taking the time to come here and do this. Supervisor Zaragoza.
Excellent presentation, and I think one of the things that's really glaring to me was that for every dollar invested, we save $7 in the future, and I think that's extremely important in providing that care for the children, and they learn what 90% of the learning is done from 0 to 3. So, but excellent presentation, and I think it's a big savings for us in the future. Thank you.
All right, we need a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
I'll second it, and we're ready to vote to accept this 2-year extension.
Thank you.
And that passes. Thank you very much. Keep up your good work. We have our next 11:30 time certain item is a request by staff to postpone until November 10th. The report on the same thing that I asked for a report on in a different version, right? And this would be the actual how are we going to use the money, et cetera. And I think my questions are sort of preliminary to that, which is what happened and what are the options, I think it makes sense to.
It
I
is
would
the
like
same
to have-
issue, neighborhood stabilization program.
Exactly, right. But I'd certainly like to hear that before I hear the proposal in terms of what we do if we can do that.
Well, based on how the directions are coming out, this may actually have to be continued.
Trailed even more. Right. Sure.
Yes.
So we'll see. Okay. So I appreciate that. So that's a motion to continue, and I guess at the same time, I just make the motion that the two questions that I asked come back next week. Is that appropriate for us to do that at this point in time? All right. So what happened with the original grant, et cetera, and what are the various options in terms of dealing with that? Thank you. So that's the motion, and the second. I'll second the motion if you're comfortable with that modification, Supervisor Parks. All right, and we're ready to vote. Thank you. And we now have a joint presentation between HSA and HCA. You have, I'm supposed to be done at noon. You have 26 minutes, and every minute you come in early, I get a crow about to Supervisor Foy.
Yeah. They asked earlier how much time do they have, and I said, well, once you have the mic, you can go as long as the chair allows you. Well, it's my privilege to start this presentation. It is a joint presentation with multiple people. This isn't just the HSA leading this, and I'll introduce each of us who's all involved in this project, which we're in an initial project of an electronic record system for foster kids, really an electronic health record that will unify a lot of information and a lot of ability to access information that is vital in managing and looking over the welfare for foster children. This is a great project, and it came about in a unique way in many respects. It was really initiated by Verizon in contacting us and introducing us to the concept of what the Children's Partnership is doing elsewhere in the nation, and asked if we had an interest with that, and we did. And I sent some materials to Mike, and he enthusiastically said, yes, let's explore this further. And that's kind of the genesis of how it got initiated and rolling. And then Verizon and the partnership, Children's Partnership, came together and outlined it and initiated the project and started that. And it is our hope today to give you a little overview of what this project is. We've started it, and what our hopes and goals are with the culmination of this project and what it may mean for us and for the state of California, and we hope to keep you informed there. So I'd like to introduce Stephanie Gleckman from the Children's Partnership, who will give you what the project's all about and how what the goals are and what we expect to achieve. And then Holly Cole from Verizon will also speak to us on Verizon's participation, which was really funding this effort and this grant opportunity to seek a project like that. And then Mike has some concluding remarks. So we'll turn the time over to Stephanie then.
Thank you. Hi. I am the Manager of Health Policy at the Children's Partnership, and the Children's Partnership is a national nonprofit that has been advocating for children for the past 20 years. We've been focusing on the issues of health care, mostly for kids who are at risk of being left behind, as well as focusing on getting the benefits of digital opportunity to all children. We combine national research with community-based efforts, and in that way we are the sort of research and development arm of the children's movement. So a couple of years ago, we got involved and started looking nationwide at the challenges that are facing kids in foster care. And the kids in foster care have greater and more varied needs than other children. They have higher rates of chronic conditions. They have higher rates of emotional serious emotional disturbances. So their needs are really great. And they receive services from a multiplicity of different places. So what happens is that key information about them is maintained by systems separately, systems that are siloed. And this information fragmentation leads to lack of coordination among care providers. It leads to service delays and gaps, and it leads to problems with case management. Nationally, kids in foster care change homes an average of 2 to 3 times a year, and these placement changes are accompanied by changes in physicians and caretakers, and all their key information gets lost every time they move because it's not stored by a parent, by a record, anywhere. This leads to all sorts of problems, most specifically and most recorded in the healthcare arena, lack of immunizations, double immunizations, lack of knowledge about healthcare history, about medications, all sorts of problems with both primary and acute care. So we looked across the nation, what are folks doing about this? How can we solve this problem for kids in foster care? And it's through the electronic information sharing. So there are new tools that can help address storage, sharing, and coordination gaps. And not only address the sharing of information and the storage of information, but once we store this information about kids, we can better assess what their needs are. Because if we have population data about foster care kids, we can determine what their needs are. So we looked across the country. We looked specifically at 6. There are some that are doing it on a state level, some that are doing it on a locality level, that have built electronic record systems for kids in foster care. And these have all been joint efforts between healthcare and social services. They have been planned and implemented by state or county health and human service departments, working with nonprofits, as well as contracting with private technology organizations to put this together. And they're built on the earlier concept of health and education passports for kids that were supposed to contain this information and travel with them. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So we looked at these states and localities, and it turns out there's a lot of early evidence of greatly improved health outcomes. There's better preventative care, decreased hospital stays, improved clinical conditions, and in addition to improved outcomes, there have been cost savings as well. Decrease in cost of care per child by reducing avoidable illness, duplicative services, and hospital and residential care, as well as a reduction in pharmacy costs. Specifically in Milwaukee, they have instituted an electronic record system for kids in foster care, and the number of youth in residential programming declined from 364 to 140 per day, and psychiatric hospitalizations declined by 80%.
Could you give me that first number, 300?
Sure.
Kids hospitalized?
Yeah, 364 to 140.
They dropped hospitalization by that amount simply because they had better records?
Yeah, it was in order to do wraparound care where they were doing preventative psychiatric. Most of the hospitalizations were psychiatric hospitalizations, so they were able to attack the problem before it got to the level.
Thank you.
And in terms of cost containment, what this meant for Milwaukee was that the cost of care per child dropped dramatically from $5,000 per month to less than $3,300 due to the necessity for residential and psychiatric hospitalization care, as well as all the other duplicative immunizations, et cetera.
Supervisor Parks?
Could you elaborate a little bit more about how record keeping prevents escalation of mental illness?
Absolutely. It's not just mental illness, it's all sorts of healthcare conditions. As a child moves from placement to placement, if both the caretaker and the new physicians or the social workers don't know about the conditions that they may have previously had, then they're not taken care of at the get-go, and they can get to a state where they need a much higher level of care than if these conditions were known at the beginning. And it's true in terms of, like I said, there's the example that I always unfortunately like to use that makes this so stark. This was in San Diego. There was an infant who had heartburn, was taken as a baby into foster care, and the information that she had heartburn was not provided to her caretaker. Her caretaker was a very good caretaker, gave her a bottle, set her down in the crib, and the child choked to death because of the regurgitation. And so it's just very simple, basic information that if it's in a record that can be obtained by all sorts of caretakers and providers, people involved in the foster child's life, can have a really dramatic impact. So the Children's Partnership looked around at all these different states and localities in the nation and saw that they were improving outcomes, and saw that this was a time and opportunity there was funding and money for electronic records through ARA and other places, and said, okay, we've got to get California on board. So we, with the California Healthcare Foundation, are right now doing a roadmap for California as a state to design an electronic record system for kids.
And I assume that that'll be a standardized record across the state?
Yeah.
And will it be a standardized record across the country?
We are not at that point right now, no. I hear you. I would love that. And we are advocating also at the federal level for that.
They ought to pass a law that whatever California does, everybody else does. And it sounds self-serving, but I mean, we're so large and we're actively involved in this stuff. I mean, when it comes to other things, let Texas lead, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, California really ought to that ought to be the standard.
Yeah, we're working. Part of the issue, a major part of the issue, is standardization of information technology of the major data sets, statewide and federal data sets, the Medicaid data set, the SACWIS data set, the social services data set. So part of what we're doing as the Children's Partnership is advocating at the federal level for similar technology standards, so all these systems can speak to one another, so that we can have eventually a record like that. Right now what we're building it with the architecture to enable that, but they're not communicating yet at this point.
Sue has a person.
I can't help but think about the law, the HIPAA law, that greatly limits the ability to share medical information. How does this impact that?
Well, obviously everything that we're doing falls under HIPAA, and right now the state of California is working with the Administrative Office of the Courts to determine exactly what can and can't be shared, and that's being paid great attention to.
But that may limit the effectiveness of this, I would think.
It does, but it turns out that it's unfortunate, but the stage that we're at right now, it turns out that even the name and information of a provider, of a child going from one home to another, is not known. So there are some very basic things that HIPAA does allow for very clearly that are the low-hanging fruit that we're starting with. And then while we debate all of the higher level things that would be, very helpful to have in a record, there's still some very low-hanging fruit that can help us get a really long way.
And I can't imagine they can't solve that. I mean, all the people that go through with all the training for foster care, there must be a fair number of people that are authorized to look at those records and can make sure at least if somebody has heartburn that they, that piece of information gets on and stuff. So.
Exactly.
All right.
So we're working closely with the state to do this. We're building a roadmap for how the state can do this on a statewide level. There's some low-hanging fruit there too, but it's more of a 3 to 5 year effort at this point. And so we decided, well, we need to do a pilot somewhere. so that we can see a lot of what are the policy issues, what are all the things that are going to come up. So we looked to Ventura and found that Ventura would be a good fit for a model for a statewide record. There's great leadership here. There's interest in what electronic records can do, what technology can do for these kids. It's amazing how the two departments, Human Services and Healthcare Agency, work together, which unfortunately isn't the case in many counties. The number of children here in foster care is large enough to really be a test. It's about 800 kids, but small enough to be a manageable population for us to work with as a pilot. And there seems to be a real connection to the community. So we're really looking to this as a model for statewide and eventually national progress. So we've seen this as three phases of the effort here in Ventura. Phase 1 is the roadmap for the design, implementation, and evaluation of the record, and phase 2, that's going to be about a 3-month effort. Phase 2 looks to be about a year, and that's to prepare to launch the record, and that's what will happen in 2010. And then phase 3 we see as going on, hopefully starting mid-phase 2, but ongoing for about 3 years, from 2011 to 2013. And at this point, we have funding for phase 1 from from Verizon, and they've shown interest, as well as other funders, to continue this effort, and we are really excited to move forward. And with that, unless there are questions for me, I would like to turn it over to Holly, but
I do have one question in terms
Please.
of that. So you've got Verizon for the funding for phase 1.
For phase 1.
Do you think you're going to have Verizon for funding for phase 2? Is that what you were trying to imply?
You can ask Verizon about that. But yeah, that's the hope. And we do also, we've had interest expressed from other funders as well.
How much funding do you need for phase 2?
That's an interesting question. We are working through that right now.
Bracket it for me, ballpark it for me. $1,000, $100,000, $1 million?
I'd say around 100 would be my best guess
okay.
for phase 2 right now.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, Supervisors, I'm Holly Cole with Verizon. At the Verizon, our commitment to customer service doesn't stop at technology and telecommunications. We have long been committed to philanthropy with a purpose, and we look to use our technology, our human resources, and our financial ability to make a difference in our communities. The program that you've just heard Stephanie talk about is one that can really make a difference to our foster care. We have nearly 800 youth in foster care in Ventura County. Our purposeful philanthropy targets initiatives that leverage technology to increase access to health information, advance caregiver effectiveness, and improve patient health. The program will definitely improve patient health, it'll improve caregiver effectiveness, and it'll make a difference for each of those kids. Verizon got involved in this program initially because we see the advantages of the electronic medical records and what kind of a difference it'll make. And to have Ventura County be the first of our 58 counties in California that can really lead the way to make a difference for the kids, and then, as you stated, to take it to a national level, not just a California level. The program aligns to our interest, which is making that difference and touching lives through technology and information services. The roadmap that Verizon has done the funding for, we proudly came forward and funded $25,000 for phase 1 to get the program started, and we are without a doubt on board for the ongoing phase 2 and phase 3.
Oh, that's great.
It's a program that we are looking to stay engaged in. It's a collaborative effort that truly will make a difference, and in partnership with the Children's Partnership, the Healthcare Agency, and the Human Services Department, and the Verizon Foundation, we know that we can make a difference. We appreciate your interest.
You know, I just want to say this isn't the first time that you've been in our boardroom, and
Correct.
It's not the first time you've stepped forward for.
And it won't be the last.
Yeah. step forward, and I think even for other foster care
Yes.
programs and stuff. You're not getting enough credit. And I genuinely mean that. I mean, these are, people touching the foster care program, usually it's a lot of commitment and it's pretty much off the radar screen. We have no reporter here from the newspaper for one of the most exciting items on our agenda. And I just want to tell you, as the chair of the board, and I know I speak for the whole board, I want to work with you to get you credit. And I know you might say, oh, it's okay, we don't need it, but by holding you up as a model for what you're doing, it's going to be easier for us to get other people to step up for foster kids in this county. And these kids need everybody stepping up. It is not their fault that they're foster kids. And, if you go back to the quote that we had up there this morning, none of us would let our own kid go from home to home without their medical records at least being transferred. If for some reason our kid had to go from home to home, we would cut our arm off to make sure that at least the important medical information went with them. And so we have to cut our arms off to make sure it happens for foster kids. And so I just would like to work with you to get you more credit for stepping up for this particular program in the hopes that other people will do that. So if you'd contact my office, we'd sure like to try to work something out.
Absolutely, and thank you. It really is exciting to see the difference that we can make. Our Verizon Foundation invests, last year in 2008, we invested $68 million in program grants to make a difference in the communities, truly where our customers and our employees live and work. And we really look to make that difference. We look for outcomes and somewhere where we can put an investment that's truly going to make a difference in programs such as this. For the foster children, like you said, it's not their fault that they're in those circumstances, but as each of us wrap our arms around them, we truly can make that difference for them. And it's exciting to see the investment we can make collaboratively and the difference that we can make and truly impact their lives forever. It's exciting.
You're blessed to get to help fund this money out.
Yes.
That's
absolutely. And it's exciting truly to see it happen in Ventura County. I've lived my entire life in Ventura County, and to know that we can make that difference right here where each of you live as well, it really is special.
How big is the area that the $68 million goes to that you fund?
Nationally.
Nationally.
$68 million in program grants, another $28 million in matching funds and volunteer work.
Wow. That's very impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Thank you for a good job and stuff.
Hi, I just want to appreciate and second the thinking of Verizon to enable us to do this really important work. And they have been one of the leading funders of this, and it has led to the Children's Partnership getting funding from lots of different sources for this work for foster care. Hopefully that will contribute to our effort in Ventura, but also nationwide. So it is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Verizon. I just want to quickly introduce Kiki Nocella, who is a consultant for the Children's Partnership, to say a few final closing words about the project. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for embracing this exciting project. I have the privilege of consulting with the Children's Partnership on this. I am an academic by background who built the first operational health information exchange west of the Mississippi. It's in a small rural area. And so am having just a phenomenal time doing key informant interviews and putting Mike and Barry's team through a pretty rigorous process. They are meeting every 2 weeks, not only them, but key staff from both the Human Services Agency and the Healthcare Agency, as we work through issues of governance, issues of privacy and security, issues of operations, technology. There's a host of decisions that need to be worked through and some interesting nuances that we have to think about in order to design a system that not only works here in this county, but that can scale out throughout the state. So For me personally, my appreciation to both Mike, Barry, and their teams for being present and really rolling up their sleeves and jumping into it. These are very committed people who really care about the kids. So it's been a lot of fun, and thank you for having us today.
Well, thank you very much. I want to mention one other thing with regard to Mike and Barry, and that is, you mentioned that in a lot of other counties you don't have this kind of cooperation. And I think that I'm always torn when I hear that, because I think that we feel good about that and we want to compliment our departments for that kind of collaboration. But at the same time, it reminds me to say, we also just want to say that's just expected. I mean, that has got to be the standard here. And so I'm reluctantly complimenting, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're not doing that, you're not doing the job with these big agencies like this. But there is a tendency for these big agencies to have all kinds of bureaucratic fighting and everything else. And we are fortunate in Ventura County that we certainly have beat that back a lot better than most. And I know we all would have very low tolerance for it if we had it.
Mike and Barry are the role models.
Yeah, it's just been great. Yeah. So thank you both for pushing this thing also, and thank the three of you for being here today. And let's talk about Verizon and stuff, right? We have, if we have anything else, we're ready for a motion.
Just trying to.
You got 2 minutes.
I don't want to be in the middle of that.
Notice I was getting ready to do the motion so I could say it's 12, and he's trying to nurse it.
I'm not looking at my watch. The truth
Thank you,
is,
Mike.
but I mean, I would just say that appreciate those comments, and Barry and Human Services Agency make it embarrassingly easy to work with them. It's just a very natural partnership, and it's just their attitude and approach. And there is a lot of work that's already going on with the medical providers and healthcare agency and social workers and Human Services Agency with these kids already. So this tool we're talking about here is really going to strengthen those efforts and build on that model. And it also builds on the support that your board has given to developing and strengthening community-based medical and mental health clinics. Because it's those clinics, as they do move, which is much less in this county than in most counties, as I understand it. When they do move, there is that continuity of care that's going to be there that might not have been before. So, and with that, I would just echo the appreciation for the Children's Partnership, their leadership. Again, they just sort of picked this project up and carried us all along. And I would echo what you say, Chairman, about Verizon, because at just about every meeting that I go to, Holly is there to support something for the healthcare agency or our Medical Resource Foundation. So I say thank you to them.
Thank you. Barry?
We're just grateful to participate. It's a wonderful project, very exciting to participate in, and we hope to finish this first phase, and we hope to actually come back and continually keep some progress so we can inform you on how we're doing and what areas of support and obstacles we may have that we may need to join forces in order to overcome. And it's exciting that we're planning a meeting to go to the state and really initiate this statewide as an effort. So a lot to come and a lot to see.
That's great. Supervisor Park?
And I think with the status updates, it will be helpful to have some kind of performance markers so that we know what we're achieving, and that will also help us statewide, I would think.
Great. Yeah, we'll formalize that for you.
Take care of those foster kids. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. We're ready for a motion. I'll make it just to move us along, and we're ready to vote. Roberta, could you tell us what time it is into the record? Could you read that into the record for us, right? Oh, 01, right? There we go. Thank you very much, Judge. All right, we're going back into closed session for our time certain 12:01 time certain closed session items, right? All right. I'd like to call this meeting back to order for our 1:30 time certain item with Supervisor Zaragoza. And, planned this well in advance, and it wasn't certain whether 1:30 was going to be the right time, and it's a perfect time. And we've just finished closed session and are ready for this. So, Supervisor Zaragoza.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. It's a great honor to invite Pepperdine here this evening. We have Rick and Jerry, Rick Gibson and Jerry, I'm not going to pronounce your last name. What is it? Derlashon. Anyway, they're here today with some of the outstanding students from Pepperdine. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring this to the attention of the public and also the Board of Supervisors is that normally we always hear about the horrible things that 1.5% of the youth do in the newspapers. They're talking about some criminal event and so forth. But we also have the 98 point something or 99 point something of the kids that do good, the youth that do good. And we had 3 outstanding students from Oxnard. And what I'd like to do today is hopefully have your assistance, Mr. Chair, in presenting one of the resolutions, and then Supervisor Linda Parks, because we all represent portions of Oxnard, and the 3 students are from Oxnard. But I'd like to just give you a little information about Pepperdine. Pepperdine is an independent university enrolling about 8,300 students in 5 colleges, schools, including schools of law, the graduate school, education, psychology, a business school, management, and school of public policy. Pepperdine was founded in 1937 by George Pepperdine, a businessman who founded the Western Auto Supply Company. And we also have some courses there in Pepperdine that are taught at the main campus in Malibu, at 6 graduate campuses in Southern California, and international campuses such as Germany, England, Italy, and Argentina. It's not easy to be accepted at Pepperdine. I understand they had about 7,000 applicants, potential applicants that applied in the fall of 2009, and only 859 were fortunate enough to start Pepperdine classes this fall. First-year students average a 3.65 GPA, a SAT average score of 1225, and an ACT average of 29. The transfer students have a GPA of 3.46. 3 Oxnard residents and students are Carlos Miranda, and I'll present a resolution to him, and also Meseret Luna. I think the parents are here today, and the chair will present that, and then Karen Powers. And I'm not sure if she's here today, but I think that probably Jerry or Rick can pick up that resolution for her. And they have met rigorous requirements and currently attend school at Pepperdine. And our office would like to recognize the students who have worked hard to be accepted into the outstanding local university. And we would like to continue to work with Pepperdine University to find other opportunities and collaboration with the County of Ventura and have them become potential partners with the county. So what I'd like to do is probably, Mr. Mayor, have the 3 students and stand right here in front of us, and I'm going to read this, and we'll go down to Stan. Can you help him? I'll read this accommodation, and then we can read the accommodations and go downstairs. The first person I'd like to commend is Juan Carlos Aleman Miranda for successfully entering Pepperdine in the fall of 2009. Whereas this accommodation serves as a celebration to celebrate Juan Carlos Aleman Miranda's high achievement in successfully entering Pepperdine University and majoring in computer science and pre-dental. And whereas this is a high achievement allows Juan Carlos Miranda to develop and cultivate what he already loves, is doing programming and working with computers. And he has done a lot of work for me too, personally. Whereas Juan Carlos likes to spend his free time away from the rigorous lifestyle as a new student in boxing, swimming, playing water polo, and playing the piano. Whereas Juan Carlos Miranda extends his talent to be part of a thriving organization, Sigma Phi Epsilon, I hope I pronounced it correctly, fraternity at Pepperdine. And whereas Juan Carlos Miranda, after completing his education at Pepperdine, looks forward to attending a dental school and becoming an accomplished orthodontist. Now therefore be resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors would like to take pleasure in commending Juan Carlos for the successful entering of Pepperdine and becoming a role model for other students in the city of Oxnard community, those students striving to climb the academic ladder in the pursuit of their goals. And this is presented this 27th day of October 2009 to Juan Carlos. I'll go down there and he can go ahead and present yours.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for this award. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing in my education so that I can hopefully in the future give back to my community of Oxnard and the County of Ventura. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Did you get it over? One more for office. Sorry about that.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Well, great. I see Montserrat's, I assume, mother?
Yes.
Right, here. And is this her father here also?
Yes.
Great. Before I start this, I have to say this. I hope you'll take it in the spirit that it's offered. But I looked out there and I went, where's Montserrat? I thought, you know, she looks like she could be young enough, but I'm just guessing she's not. And so anyway, it's a compliment that you're close enough that you could look like an 18-year-old in high school. But this is commending Montserrat Luna for successfully entering Pepperdine University in the fall of 2009, whereas this commendation serves to celebrate Montserrat Luna's high achievement in successfully entering Pepperdine University, majoring in creative writing. This high achievement allows Montserrat Luna to develop and cultivate what she already loves doing as a writer of short stories and poetry. She likes to spend her free time away from the rigorous lifestyle of a new student by reading, fencing, playing soccer, traveling, and learning to speak Mandarin Chinese, which is why she's not here right now. She's in China, right? And which is great. Montserrat Luna extends her talent to be part of the thriving organizations at Pepperdine University, such as the Golden Key International Honor Society and the Sigma Tau Delta International English Honor Society. Montserrat looks forward, after completing her education at Pepperdine University, to becoming a successful novelist and screenwriter. And it's with great pleasure that we'd like to present this resolution to you. I'd like to bring this down to you, and I'm glad I didn't have to be the one to write this resolution. For somebody that's as good a writer as she is, I wouldn't want my writing to be reviewed by her. But anyway, congratulations.
On behalf of our daughter, who obviously can't make it today because she's in China, thank you so much. We are very proud, and she's very honored with this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. I'll get on one side and you get on the other, John. How about that? Thank you.
And this stream slides so you can see it on the internet.
One, right here, we go 1, 2, and 3. One more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll wait and we'll get on.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, and I know the parents aren't here to help us honor Karen Powers for her successful entering of Pepperdine University. And I want to thank Supervisor Zaragoza for recognizing these young people, because anything we can do to help support them, it's not going to be easy to get through Pepperdine. It's a tough, rigorous school, but at the end, they come out really well prepared for careers, and I am really happy as a member of the county to be able to congratulate her. We're all very proud. A lot of obstacles to get there, and once you're in, it's going to be hard, but I'm sure it will be worth the effort, and I'll come down and present this to you.
Thank you. I feel honored, and I just came. Karen wishes she could be here. She would be, but she's with her youngsters in the classroom working very hard. She thanks you.
Here's hers.
Thank you. Give it to her.
All
With
right.
pride. Through with pride.
Good. It's so nice to be able to be recognized.
Teachers bring everybody together.
Great.
That's a county camera.
You're saying county's not good enough?
Yeah.
More photos. Here we go. Two more shots. Here we go, folks. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Parents in the center.
Yeah. Good idea.
Come on.
Okay.
What makes you want to go to dental school? Have you
I'm
gone
interested
through
in
that
birth.
experience yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you know all about it personally.
Dr. Miranda, right?
Thank you.
All right, you got it.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Here, one last paparazzi for me. Here. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Great day today. Thank you.
Make him sign a few.